Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming at you live from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is 10:46 on a Monday morning, December 22nd, getting really close to Christmas. Christmas Eve is Wednesday. Really excited. I just saw that, and I heard about it the other day, that we are going to get some pretty serious snow Tuesday into Wednesday. So it looks like we will probably have a white Christmas, which is amazing. Last year, we had a big uh, dump of snow on Christmas Eve. And it snowed like probably, I think last year we had about 7 to 8 inches of snow on Christmas Eve. It started snowing Christmas Eve morning, and it was awesome. And it stayed, and it was all white, fluffy, and extremely powdery. So it stayed on the ground, and it didn't melt, didn't blow away. I always feel like when it's wintertime, as in, again, I'm not like a big fan of winter, but the cold, it's mainly because the cold gets to me after a while. But I am a big fan of the snow. And one thing that has changed, the winters have gotten, I don't know, to a degree more enjoyable for me in a way that, I mean, on one hand, trying to do the crazy musician thing, with gigs and all of those things, uh, we where I live here in Maine, it's a very seasonal place, so everything usually tends to slow down in the wintertime. But when you do have that free time, I mean, it's cool to, you have time to work on other projects, and I've been doing that. Finished up a few weeks ago. I finished up a recording project with Osmia. We just finished recording our album, and I'm also in the midst now of working with this new project that we're probably going to be recording at some point, but we're slowly rehearsing the tunes, and it's a lot of fun. It's totally different, and it's all original material. And that's going to be a recording project. So sometimes with the downtime, there is obviously just more time to work on projects. I've been writing a lot of music, which has been a lot of fun. And we've had a few really fun quantum shows, so I been working pretty hard for those shows. And then so there is those bonuses. But I really do love the snow, and it's really nice. The thing that always bums me out about the wintertime is because sometimes the weather patterns are so strange these days. When we had one big snowstorm so far, and then we had a couple of nights where it snowed at night, so we got dumped on a little bit more, and it was a really nice snow. It stuck all around, and then we had this like crazy rain, tropical weird thunderstorm over the weekend. And it's always depressing when it rains so much, and then every ounce of the snow is gone, and then it's warm out. It's always like throws me off. I always think it's weird. And then when there's power outages and extreme wind, I'd rather have like the snow. But anyway, it looks like, fingers crossed, we are going to have a white Christmas, which is pretty cool. And then with Christmas season, and also Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, both those days, that is a pretty massive movie watching day for me and my family. So we always watch a ton of movies. I will go probably to Opera House Video on Tuesday and try to rent a ton of movies. And then Tuesday night, or I should say Wednesday night, Christmas Eve, we'll watch a bunch of movies. And then also Christmas Day, we'll watch a bunch of movies as well at night. The holidays, I mean, that's average for us. Like when I get together with my folks, just to have dinner or whatever, I always bring movies over and we always watch them. But usually during the holidays, we uh, we go full deep, full throttle. We'll watch three movies sometimes in a row. Last night I watched three movies, which I didn't expect because I'd gone out with some friends for Chinese food, and it was awesome, and we had a great time. had some beers, and then I came back and I watched. I was finishing a movie, and I had about 50 minutes of it to go. Finish that, and then I watched another one, and then late last night, which is going to be the show on about the movie that I watched late last night, which I usually don't do, is the movie I'm going to be talking about, and I was kind of blown away by this movie, and it was a pretty cool experience because I've never done it before. There's a YouTube guy that I like a lot, Pizzowell, who is a YouTube guy who mostly does all things horror. He takes deep dives in the shit that I really, really love when it comes to real old school horror movies, exploitation movies, slasher movies. He's really into slasher movies, and slasher movies, that's my jam. So I check out his show a lot, and he does a lot of, he covers a lot. He's a really great YouTube guy, really knowledgeable, and he has a lot of cool variety. He really does take a deep dive in a lot of the old school, horror exploitation movies from like the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and then in the 80s. But he also covers, new films. Like he did a big show on the, Predator Badlands and other newer films that are coming out. Mostly always, most of the reviews and movies or the genres that he covers are all like definitely horror based, science fiction. So really cool show. One of the coolest things that I got from that show, as far as being turned on to a movie I had never heard about, was a movie that came out, I believe, in 2023. This UK horror film, Oddity, and he had raved about this movie and said that it was the best movie of that particular year, and I think it was 2024, actually, but it came out earlier or something like that. I had not heard of this movie at all, and I actually, didn't really pay any attention until he was really raving about this movie, and he had said that this movie, for him at that time, was the best, one of the best, if not the best, newer kind of horror films. And so I ended up renting it at Opera's Video, and I was totally blown away. It's an amazing film, and it definitely is one of the best films that I do believe it came out in 2024. Love that movie. I loved it so much that I ended up buying it last year, a few months after I had seen it on Blu-ray. And I've done. There's like 2 reviews of that movie, of Oddity, on this channel. The first review is about when I rented it and saw it for the first time, and then I bought the Blu-ray edition, which is really spectacular. And then I did a second review. But amazing movie. So that was one of the coolest things I discovered. One of the coolest films. So last night I got done watching. I was up pretty late last night. I had problems sleeping, and so I was up pretty late. And then I finished watching Mansion of the Living Dead, which is such a fucking crazy, bizarre movie by one of my favorite directors, Jess Franco, the Spanish director. Probably the most prolific director that I know in the world of horror exploitation. I got this really beautiful Blu-ray of that movie a few years ago, and I've seen it a bunch of times, and I just love that movie. It's such a trip. Finished watching that, and it was probably about 11ish, 11:30. Watched like the special features again, and then I kind of took a break, and then I went online and looked up some other video stuff, and came across his channel, and was just kind of surfing around his channel, Pizzowell's channel. And he was doing a show, or he had a show posted about Christmas horror films. And I was like, wow, okay, these movies all sound awesome. There was a few I had seen, but most of them I had never seen before. as far as my collection when it comes to like Christmas horror, again, there is it's hard to say. I mean, when you look at Halloween, Halloween season and the Christmas season, there's a insane amount of movies tied to those holidays. You have, well, like with Christmas, you have movies like Die Hard or Home Alone or It's a Wonderful Life and all those kinds of things. Christmas Story, Elf, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. You have like more straight up kind of American Christmas themed movies, Christmas based movies that are all awesome, and I love those movies too. But when it comes to the horror genre, there are so many as well. Like, it's insane. But I own a lot of Christmas movies, but I don't really own a lot of Christmas horror movies, which is weird. I should own a lot more Christmas horror films, but I don't. And I had done a show on Black Christmas, which is such a masterpiece in the slasher genre. I've done multiple shows on that film, but I had went to a really cool screening of that film up in Bangor last week, and I did a show on that. And so in this show that Pizzawell was doing about Christmas movies, the number one movie that he felt was the best one for him that he watches every year was this movie that I had never heard about, and it's called Silent Night, Bloody Night. There's another slasher film which I do believe is a pretty big franchise. This is actually a franchise as well. Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is I think essentially about. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's another slasher film that became a franchise, and it's like about more or less the slasher is a guy dressed up as Santa Claus. But this movie, Silent Night, Bloody Night, and it's from 1972. I had never heard of it. I was like, "What is this?" And it was old school, like 72. And he was saying how he does these. Pizzawell does these watch along parties, these watch parties, and I've never really been into that whole kind of thing because generally I don't like people talking and gabbing and being distracted because it's easy for me to get distracted anyway. And I generally hate to watch movies online because, well, the quality is kind of crap. And then if you have to look up, unless you have a really nice TV with the right ratio and a good setup, then it can be decent. But I generally don't stream movies. But if there's a movie out there that is really rare, really hard to get, or I just can't find it anywhere else, there's been times of where I will find it online and watch it. The Hollow Man was one film that I had been wanting to see for a really long time. I couldn't find it anywhere. I watched that, and then there was another British horror film that I really, really loved recently that I couldn't find anywhere, and I kept hearing more and more about it, but I ended up watching it on like Tubi, I think, which is like a free video movie site, and I watched this British film, the Ritual, which was really awesome. Lake Mungo was one of my biggest discoveries, which was an Australian horror film, which is absolutely incredible. I couldn't find that movie anywhere. I eventually got the Blu-ray for that, but I watched it for the first time. I think it was on Tubi. Blown away by that movie. And that's not, for me, as a fan of horror, like that is not my ideal way to watch a movie. I'd rather have a physical copy of the movie because the quality is just better. That's just how I am. And the sound. I have a relatively decent TV here, and but I have a really good sound system. So that's my way of what I just prefer, easily. So anyway, Pizzawell was talking about this movie, Silent Night, Bloody Night, and he does these watch-alongs where basically he'll show a movie and all the people that are subscribing to his channel will watch it, and then there's like a discussion. And he was saying that he did a streaming show where they were going to watch this movie, or no, that they had watched this movie before, and he really talked this movie up. He said this movie is like, for him, for me, for him was just a, one of the classic slasher films of all time. And he said that this film also was a really huge inspiration for Black Christmas and Halloween. And I was just like, that's where it got me. And I was just like, what? Whoa, okay. I didn't know anything about this movie. And it came out, Black Christmas came out 74, and this film came out in 72. So I was just like, what the hell? How did I miss this? I don't know anything about this movie. And then Pizzawell also said that this movie is totally under the radar. Like, not enough people talk about it. There's no physical media release by any of the boutique labels of this film. I guess there's a DVD copy out there by a more obscure company, and he said the quality's really terrible. But he said also this film, Silent Night, Bloody Night, is public domain, and so there's a really beautiful transfer of this film on YouTube for free. And I was like, whoa. So he really raved about this movie. So I sat and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to watch it. And then clicked on the video, I found the watch along, and it was my first time doing the whole kind of watch along thing. And it was awesome. It was a fun experience. And I was totally blown away by this movie. Totally blown away by it. And it's an American movie. It came out in 72. It was directed by Theodore Gershony. Amazing cast. Mary Warrenoff was in this, who is kind of an iconic actress in the world of horror. She's been in so many movies throughout the 70s and 80s. The first movie I ever saw her in, of all movies, was House of the Devil by Ty West a few years back. And she's much older in this film, but that was the first one. And then I was like, well, wait, she's like been around forever. And I've seen a lot of other movies with her in it. But she's like super young in this movie. The cast was absolutely fantastic in this movie. James Patterson, again, Mary Warrenoff. John Carradine was in this movie as well. Patrick O'Neill, Candy Darling, Astrid Heron, Walter Abel, Fran Stevens, Philip Burns, Jack Smith, and Tally Brown. And this movie is definitely a through and through seasonal slasher film. It came out in 72. It's an American film. And it is creepy as hell. Like, there is some really, really great creepy moments. It's totally a slasher film. And it's like the whole film is set, obviously the backdrop of the film is it's definitely a Christmas horror film. And it's, definitely a slasher film. But it's set around this whole town, this small little town where I don't want to give anything away because there is a plot reveal towards the third act of this movie that's kind of jaw-dropping and just super fucked up and amazing. But the story is basically centered on this very small town, and there's a character, a guy who or a family that owns this house, and it's been in this family for a long time, and they're trying to sell this house, and these other people end up buying it, and they end up moving into it, and it's this big old kind of creepy house. Beautiful atmosphere in this film. It's super creepy. The music is absolutely incredible. And these people move into this house not realizing, who the people in this town are actually. They're actually not who you think they are. And the whole town has this incredibly kind of disturbing history to it that has been kind of buried. And you're slowly learning about this whole kind of mysterious thing that's happening and who these people actually are. and there's a serial killer, a slasher killer in the town who is picking people off one by one while all of this stuff is kind of unfolding. Really awesome though, super suspenseful, super creepy, great kills. There's a lot of cool, a lot of really cool kind of voiceover narration for the film throughout, which is really effective. It really sets the tone, and it feels like at times almost like a documentary because it's so, and it has this like 80s or 70s kind of TV movie feel, which is really really cool. And you kind of feel like, wow, is this kind of based on some actual, historical, things? And it's, but it's not. It's all fiction. But it's so well crafted. It's so well directed. Beautiful cinematography. And again, Pizzuel was saying how this movie was a massive influence, most likely, on Black Christmas and Halloween. So that's, I mean, those were the two things right there where I was like, okay, I'm in it to win it. I'm gonna see this. So when those things were said, I was like, okay, I'm into this movie. So I started watching this movie pretty late. I started watching this movie about quarter to midnight last night, quarter to 12, 11:45. But I was totally hooked, totally into it. I love the feel of this movie. I love the world. It was really, there's some incredibly creepy moments. And I will have to say, I was kind of blown away by the character who is the slasher and the way it was shot, because I was like, wait, this is totally Black Christmas. This is totally where they got this idea. And I started to have this weird thing kind of, I don't know, this, I started thinking, wow, like, is this movie, was Black Christmas a total, like, absolute ripoff of this movie? And because the thing that I've always loved about Black Christmas is well, that movie is so suspenseful, and I think it always plays out to me. I mean, it's a still a quintessential slasher movie, such an amazing film, super creepy as hell. But it always, to me, always plays out like a really, it's like a classic Hitchcock. It feels like it has this classic Alfred Hitchcock style because there's so much suspense and tension. And when I first started watching Silent Night, Bloody Night, and I was getting into it, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes into it, I was like, I'm like, yeah, okay, I have to watch this. I'm not going to bed. And the movie is not that long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. So I ended up watching the whole thing, and I finished it about 2 in the morning. So, but when I was watching it, and then there were these sequences where you're being kind of introduced to who the killer is, and there were these series of kills, I was like, oh fuck, I'm like, wow, is Black, because the other thing, one of the other things I love about Black Christmas is I always felt like it was really original, and suddenly I felt like, was that in jeopardy for me? Was I starting to feel like, oh wait, is this movie such a ripoff of Silent Night, Bloody Night, where I was like, wait, maybe Black Christmas isn't that original really at all, because there are certain sequences in this movie that are such, like, almost copy and paste for what was used in Bob Clark's Black Christmas, especially around, like, visually, the way they show when you're introduced to the killer in the film, like that POV where you're in, the camera is the killer and you're seeing everything from his perspective, like walking up these long staircases in this really creepy house, and he's staying in this house. No one else knows he's there. All from that perspective, I was like, oh shit, that's totally Black Christmas. And then scenes of where he's wearing these leather gloves, and then the biggest thing was the creepiest parts of Black Christmas are all of the phone call sequences. They're highly fucked up and disturbing and just amazing. And there's a whole series of these phone call sequences in Silent Night, Bloody Night, which I'm like, oh my god, this is the same fucking movie. So I started to have this weird thing of like on one hand, I'm totally enjoying this film, totally into it. I was like, how have I never heard of this movie? How have I I've never seen it before. I was totally into it, totally enjoying it. But at the same time, as much as I love Black Christmas, I was like, oh man, is my appreciation and deep love for that movie going to go down because this movie is literally this movie was literally just copied and paste, you know, and it doesn't it wasn't Black Christmas isn't an original film really at all. It's literally the same movie. And I was like, so it was a weird. It sounds funny describing it, but I had a weird set of emotions watching. Like I was totally into this movie, but then I'm thinking Black Christmas. Wow, is this gonna make that? Is it gonna depreciate my love and respect for that movie because of what maybe Bob Clark did as far as seeing this movie and just copying it? Um, but I will say that didn't happen because there are certain sequences that are very much taken from Silent Night, Bloody Night that were used for, or I would say influenced, maybe not taken. That might be a strong word. There are certain sequences that are taken from that are very much influenced, like without. And I will say too, Halloween too, like the first Halloween by John Carpenter. There's big time influences. Like you can really see how John Carpenter must have seen this movie. Really interesting. You know, the interesting thing too is like with John Carpenter's history. I mean, John Carpenter's always said that, you know, for Halloween, Black Christmas was like his biggest inspiration, and he took a lot from that movie and created Halloween. But yet Halloween, and you can see its influence, but yet it's its own thing. Like it's totally its own thing. And as I was having these weird doubts because that happened to me a few years ago, where it did make me swing completely the other way. And in the film that I did put on this pedestal, now I don't even really like it because I'm like, wait, this movie is not original at all. And that movie, that situation is Joaquin Phoenix, the Joaquin Phoenix movie, The Joker. I loved that movie when it first came out. I got to see it in the theater. Thought it was just an incredible film. And then a few years later, or even during that time that I'd seen that movie, um, I had seen an interview with the director of The Joker, and also hearing interviews with Joaquin Phoenix saying that I think, was his name Todd Haynes, I think, the director. He was talking about how that movie, The Joker, this particular version was really, really influenced by Martin Scorsese movies because it has this like very urban, kind of gritty aesthetic. And he named the movie in particular that he felt was a really, really huge influence on that movie, and that is the Martin Scorsese movie, The King of Comedy. I had never seen that movie either. I had heard of it with Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis. I had heard of that movie, but I had never seen it. You know, that happens. I mean, there's just so many movies out there that, you know, you're not always going to see everything. And it was totally under the radar for me. And then so I heard about that, and then a year or two after, I went out and I rented The King of Comedy at Opera's Video, and I watched it, and it's a fucking amazing movie. I had never seen it. I kicked myself for never seeing it before, but it's a fucking phenomenal movie. It's one of Robert De Niro's best performances. Super underrated movie, super under the radar. A movie that no one ever talks about. But I was like, after I watched King of Comedy, I was just like, fuck the Joker, because literally that movie just totally ripped off the King of Comedy from top to bottom in virtually every facet, and it totally diminished my high praise of the Joker, because I was like, because that was one of the things. The same situation here with both of these horror films. I was like, the Joker, I felt, was such an original movie. I mean, coming off the heels of like The Dark Knight, what they were going to do with, in the light of such an incredible performance by Heath Ledger, like where they're going to do something new and unique. And the Joker also being my favorite villain of all time. And so many incarnations, but I felt when I first saw the Joker, it was so original. And then when I saw the King of Comedy, I'm like, no, this is literally a copy and paste. And I love, again, exploitation movies are my favorite, is my jam. And that's kind of one of the modes of operation with exploitation movies is, you have directors that try to capitalize on a market. I mean, it's like you have films like Jaws or like The Exorcist, big budget Hollywood films that a lot of exploitation movies, kind of ripped off and made these really shitty, kind of low budget, sleazy versions of those films. And I generally love those films. And a lot of the times I feel like, yeah, they rip them off and they copy them, but they're also so their own thing. But for the Joker situation, I felt it wasn't even that. It literally was this copy and paste thing where there wasn't a really any original idea anymore for me, and it totally diminished my idea or my regard. And because I always put the Joker in this high regard as being just an amazing film, and now I don't even really like that film. So I was worried that was going to happen with Silent Night, Bloody Night, and Black Christmas. But I will say, after I was into this movie and watching it and getting to, um, understand the story more, I was like, no, wait. These movies are both very different from each other. It's everything about it is incredibly different. And I had this, it's funny, I had this like sign of relief, because I was like, oh wait, no, Bob Clark didn't totally rip this movie off. It was definitely influenced by it. And he did take some things from that movie, obviously. But Black Christmas is, I came away from that still feeling, well, Black Christmas is its own thing. Black Christmas, I feel, is much more of a thriller, and it's much more of like a Hitchcock kind of a thriller, kind of a way of storytelling. There's much more suspense throughout the entire film. Whereas Silent Night, Bloody Night doesn't really have that kind of vibe. It's much more of a disturbing slasher film, but it also has this very kind of gothic vibe. Totally different movie. So I had this sign of relief. Like, both of these movies are amazing, and it didn't diminish my love of Black Christmas really at the end of the day at all. I was worried though. It was really funny. But that being said, Silent Night, Bloody Night is absolutely amazing. I was blown away by this film. There's this whole sequence of where there's this big giant reveal in the movie where they tell you, where you learn about these really dark secrets that have been going on, and they are shot in this really. These sequences are shot in this incredibly grainy, kind of white. It's like the footage is like blown out almost, and it's amazing. It's amazing. The music is absolutely incredible. The music obviously very much influenced the score for Black Christmas as well, but it's its own thing. It's its own thing. Amazing movie, and I can't believe I've never heard of this movie and never seen it. The quality of this movie, Pizzuel had said that this is like the best version of the movie that's out there. And I was really impressed with the quality. It looked really great and I watched it on YouTube. I mean, it was a YouTube version, and it looked fantastic. It really did. I was impressed because usually the sound quality and audio, a lot of times for older films does not look very good. But I was really, really impressed. I was really, really blown away by this movie. Super creepy, some great kills, a really great story, really great characters, so original. Totally a Christmas horror film, totally a slasher film, and just amazing. I'm like, how the hell did I never see this movie? And I'm really surprised that this movie, as good as it is, hasn't gotten a release. I think the problem is, I think Pizzawell did say that the original negative for the and print for these films uh, is gone, like totally gone, and they got destroyed or nobody took care of it. So there's no way of really there's no way that that these boutique companies can transfer these movies to Blu-ray or 4K because of that. But there is this really beautiful version of it on YouTube that's public domain, so you can watch it for free. Amazing. I can't recommend this movie enough. So, yeah, pretty wild times. So, thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.